Good morning, ATP family. Welcome to today's Andre the Podcast. I'm happy to have you joining me today. We have an amazing and informative show for you this morning. I am so excited to welcome my first guest to today's show. I am talking with Miss Kelly Ransdell, the Public Director of Education for the National Fire Safety Association. Miss Kelly, thanks for being with me this morning.
Thanks for letting me join you.
Yes, ma'am. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Fire Prevention Week. And I'm sure a lot of you listening, like myself, had no idea that there was actually a week dedicated to fire prevention. So I thought it was important to dive deep into this topic and learn more about ways that we should know what kind of to expect and look for, especially with this year's theme, which is lithium-ion batteries in your home. I had no idea. So, Miss Kelly, again, thanks for being with me today. I am so excited to learn more about this important topic that many people should really consider, especially who are homeowners. My first question to you is, what does Fire Prevention Week mean to you, particularly with this year's theme being Ion Prevention Month?
Okay. Well, this is the longest running health and safety observance in the country. It started in 1922. It's 103 years old, and each year we take a look at emerging issues. And this year, the topic is going to be on charging into fire safety, lithium-ion batteries in the home. And that really is a topic that affects everyone, because whether you know it as that or not, anything pretty much that's rechargeable would have a lithium-ion battery in it. And this topic is one that most people just assume that it's no big deal that I have something rechargeable, but they do have a fiery side. And so we have found that if you don't buy them from a reputable source, if you don't charge them correctly, and if you don't properly recycle them, that they can cause fires. And so this year's campaign is focused on some really simple things that the public can do to live with them safely and use them safely.
Yes, ma'am. And see, I think that's another issue too, is so often, especially with the access that we have to objects that we might think are like batteries, for example, that we think are safe. And in reality, they aren't. And for a lot of people who aren't necessarily aware of the differences between a battery that might be harmful to you and then one that's legit, that can be scary. I've seen stories myself being a journalist and having to write stories about people who have lost their homes due to smoke detectors not going off, or buying batteries that aren't safe according to experts. So I think that's another big thing that we really need to discuss more about. So my next question is this. In your opinion, how has the risk when it comes to the landscape of fires changed over the past 10 to 20 years? Like maybe due to climate change, for example.
Well, it actually is due to several things. One is the type of products that our homes are built with. So, lightweight construction, that was always designed to be used with home fire sprinklers. And so they're built very different than they were years ago. We have a more open concept. And what that means is there's more room if you have a fire for it to spread. Instead of being compartmentalized into individual rooms, we have much larger houses that have more open space. So that has been part of it, but also more electronics and more plastics have also changed fires. Fires burn faster than they used to. And so as a result of that, having a working smoke alarm is a really important thing, because that gives you about 2 minutes to get out if you have a home fire. Now, introducing lithium-ion batteries into this has actually decreased the amount of time you have to get out, which is why it's so important that we have good information. Because as you mentioned, people think anything that is sold is safe, but actually, just because it's sold does not mean it's safe. So we want to give people ways that they can check to make sure that things have gone through a safety process here in the United States. And that's by buying a product that is listed. And so if we say a product is listed, what that means is there's about 100 testing labs in the U.S. So some that you may be used to are the symbol for UL. It may say UL certified. It may say ETA, ETL. it may say CSA and some others. And as part of that, it will say it's been listed. That means it meets minimum safety standards. So, unfortunately, when you buy online, you have to do your homework a little more and look and see, does it have a safety certification mark on it? That's where, if you're buying products like e-bikes and other things, you want to make sure you can put eyes on it to make sure that it has been listed, because then we know that it's followed the safety guidance here in North America.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so important, and I think a lot of people miss that, and that there's a misconception of, oh, if you go online and buy something, it's automatically legit. I have seen and read several stories about people purchasing ion batteries, lithium batteries off of e-commerce websites, and they think, okay, I got a deal. These are, relatively, easy priced, and so they'll buy them, and then tragic and oftentimes horrific things happen simply because they maybe took an alternative to buying it from a website that's maybe not as known, or where they're not checking behind the person who's maybe listing these items to see if they're legit or not.
Yeah, and quality is a real big issue. Another thing is, for example, if you lose your charger or if your charger is damaged for any of these lithium ion products that are rechargeable, it's really important that you buy a charger that is allowed by the manufacturer. So it either came with it or it's certified for that product. And so instead of just, I forgot my charger, going to a convenience store and buying one, or going online and buying any charger, you need to make sure it is compatible with the device, because what will happen is, if you've ever done that, you'll notice that the cable gets hot or the device gets hot. And that should be a red flag that this is not safe and to stop. Always use the charger that came with it and never off brand chargers.
Yeah. And again, it's easy to do that because there are so many stores nowadays. I won't name them, but those who are listening, they understand where you can go and get them for a cheaper price. You're thinking, okay, this is a steal. Why not? So you have a very valid point there. I want to ask you this too. What are some of the most overlooked risks that come with, for everyday homeowners, really, when it comes to fire safety?
So we have a lot of folks that still cooking is the number one cause of home fires. Many people cook either when they're drowsy or maybe if they've had a drink, they may forget things. We also have that people are just busy and we're all very distracted. So unfortunately, cooking is still the leading cause of home fires. And as a result of that, we give people good tips about, making sure that you always supervise what you're cooking, that you have a pot lid close by if you were to be frying something. If you were to have a fire in your oven, just to turn off the oven, leave the door closed, and it will put itself out. And so those are some of the things around cooking. Unfortunately, the number one cause of home fire fatality, so that is people dying in fires, is still smoking. And so, even though less people smoke, we still have a lot of fatalities from that. So, if you smoke, we want to make sure that you have a way to put that out safely. You want to go outside if possible and not smoke inside. Never smoke in bed. Never smoke around medical oxygen. There's no way I can tell you to do that safely. So, if you go outside, we want to make sure you have either a bucket with some sand in it. That's safe. Don't ever put it in potted plants because that mulch can actually ignite. And so we want to make sure you have a way to get rid of those cigarette butts, to wet them and make sure that they're not going to cause a fire. So unfortunately, smoking and cooking are two of our leading causes. And now, with this emerging issue of lithium ion batteries, it really comes down to never leaving anything on a charger. If you're charging it, you want to be aware of where it is, and when it's finished charging, you want to take it out of the charger and not leave it in. And so when you talked about the folks that that people assume it's okay to leave a battery in the charger all the time or on a charger all the time, but actually that's not true. When it's fully charged, you're supposed to unplug it and take it off the charger. And so those are just some of the ways we can stay safe from the leading causes of fire.
That is key. Having worked in a newsroom where we have to use a lot of cameras, to go out and shoot stories. Talking with management, they're quick to say, "Don't leave the battery on the charger too long. We don't want to, mess up the camera or cause any issues here." So that's another thing. And then I'm noticing just from my own personal experiences, that I'm noticing more and more people when they're charging their phones, for example. Sometimes while the phone is charging, they'll have the plug, the charging plug in the phone, and they'll still actively be using it, or they'll let it sit there for hours on the charger. And I think that is so dangerous, especially once it's fully charged. So make a very valid
Yeah,
point
and
there as
and
well.
really when you're charging, I would say, I have college age kids and I always remind them sometimes they'll fall asleep with their phone and they may be charging it. We don't want you to ever have a phone in your bed or charging on carpet or on furniture. It needs to be on a hard surface because when it's charging, it actually generates energy and so it needs to breathe. So having it on a hard surface is a really important thing for people to do is to charge on a hard surface and then take it off that charger when it's fully charged.
Damn, I have a nightstand. I'm one of those people who listen. I have a nightstand. It was worth the investment.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So, how often, in your opinion, should people be testing and replacing their smoke detector systems?
Yeah, so smoke alarms have a life of 10 years from the date of manufacture. So we always joke if you see a smoke alarm and it looks, there used to be a commercial where they said, "What color are my teeth?" And they said, "Chartreuse, mother of pearl." Well, if the smoke alarm is also not a true white color, that means it's probably too old to be used. So they're not vintage. They actually are designed to be replaced after 10 years from date of manufacture. So always replace it 10 years. And then we want you to test them monthly. And that is because it helps you to make sure that it can alert if you have a fire. And then the other thing is we want you to make sure that you're practicing your home escape plan twice a year. And that is one time during the day and one time at night because it looks very different going out of your house during the day than it can at night, especially if you have family members. And then if you have traditional batteries, there's all different types of smoke alarms out there. There's some that have long life batteries, and those long life batteries, they stay in it from the time you activate it until it expires at 10 years. But if you're using a traditional one that's hardwired, it will have a 9-volt battery in it. Those need to be changed annually. So just pick a special day each year and change those batteries so that you have a backup battery. But that's the tips we can give you around smoke alarms. They are so important to have them on each level of your home. And if you can, to have them outside each bedroom and inside.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm probably going to get a little heat for this, but I'm a journalist, so I have to be fair and mention this. I've been in not just people's homes, but businesses who have smoke alarms, and many times they'll have their smoke alarms on the wall or on the ceiling. And I'm sure a lot of us hate to hear the noise, but that beeping noise, that external beep where it continues to beep over and over,
The
and
chirp.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And a lot of people say it's just the battery, we'll replace it or we've replaced it. It's just gonna keep chirping. Don't worry about it. How dangerous is that when we hear that chirping? Should we immediately be alarmed, even if we've changed the battery, or if we're thinking, okay, we'll change it, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. What do you say
Well,
to that?
if you have a traditional smoke alarm that the battery needs to be changed out annually, it is very important when if it's chirping, that means you haven't been changing it annually because those batteries actually last a little longer than that. Now, sometimes a chirp can mean the end of life. And so that's why it's important that you check it out. If it starts chirping, it could be that the battery needs replacing if you haven't done that, or it could be end of life. And so that means it needs action. And so you can look at it, check the date, and change the battery, and you can put it up there. But we know that after 10 years of manufacture, they quit working. Even if you test it and it still works, that 10 years is the magic number. But also, if it has a chirp, some newer smoke alarms will tell you that they're at their end of life. And so it's really important that you take action if you hear that.
Ramsey, that's very important. Everybody listening, you've heard it here first. Take care of that. Don't delay it. It's not good. I want to ask you this as well because I think there's a lot of confusion that might come with this. So when it comes to renters versus homeowners, what are some of the fire safety responsibilities that may differ for people who are responsible for inspecting smoke detectors and planning escape plans, for example?
So the it every state is different. So it depends on the authority having jurisdiction where you are. And so depending on where you are, you can go online and check with either the state fire marshal's office there or a county fire marshal's office if you're in a city, that city. And you can reach out to their fire marshal's office if you're renting a property and has a question because I can't give you any general things. I will tell you though that if a person owns a property and you're renting, it's their responsibility to make sure you have working smoke alarms, of course. But that's the biggest thing is working smoke alarms. The fire department really doesn't have any jurisdiction to go into people's individual homes, but the homeowner really becomes their own hero. And that is, I when I was in college, of course, I rented places, and it was my responsibility to make sure that I had a working smoke alarm, for my personal protection. So we would tell people to take safety as a priority in your life because your life is really special. And so making sure you have that. If you have questions, your local fire department's a great place to go and kind of help you understand those things. But just as a general rule, every place is different. But as a homeowner or as a renter, we want you to take safety as a priority.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That and I think that that can be so confusing. I actually have a friend who recently graduated from college, and just talking with them, they were saying there are so many things that they didn't consider, especially when it came to fire safety. And they're
Mhm.
out of state now; they're not
Yeah.
with their family anymore. So I think I'll let them know that investing in a smoke detector, because that was one thing that they didn't think about,
Well,
especially having a roommate who um, accidentally set something on fire, almost set something on fire, I should say. So,
Well, and another topic that a lot of folks don't know about is carbon monoxide. Carbon
mm,
monoxide is, it doesn't care how old you are, how young you are. Carbon monoxide is an invisible killer. And that is, you can't taste it, smell it, or see it. And there's been tons of media reports on this with people going to beautiful places on vacation and tragically dying because there may have been an appliance that was malfunctioning. So we encourage people to have working CO alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. That's another tool for your toolkit. Some states don't have laws that require it, but we all can take safety in our own hands. And that is, I travel with a carbon monoxide alarm. Just because you're in a hotel or in a peer-to-peer hospitality like VRBO or Airbnb, something like that, doesn't guarantee you'll have a carbon monoxide alarm. And so it could be the difference in you going to bed and waking up or not. But really talking to people about if you have multiple people and they're sick and they start feeling bad, it really needs to be taken serious. It may not be food poisoning. It could be carbon monoxide poisoning. So making sure you have a carbon monoxide alarm with you when you're at home and when you travel is so important. Buying them at a traditional store or online, just make sure you buy one that's listed. And they make them that actually have a sealed in battery so that when I get to my hotel, I open up my suitcase, I take that CO alarm, and I just sit it on the bedside table because carbon monoxide is the same composition as air. So we're breathing it just like regular. It doesn't have to be installed on a ceiling or high on a wall like a smoke alarm. It can just be sitting on a nightstand. And I have it out there just for peace of mind because it may be that a pool heater malfunctions if you're in a hotel. It could be their dryer, their heating, or anything. And so it's really important that you travel with a carbon monoxide alarm and you have one in your home if you have any fossil fuel burning appliance, if you have an attached garage, if you have a grill, anything like that, or a generator. It's important to have a carbon monoxide alarm.
I had no idea that they made them for traveling. I knew that they
Yes.
made them for homes, but for traveling, I had no idea. So you learn something new every day. I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you this one last question before we wrap up. And I
Okay.
want to get your opinion. This may be hard, but I do want to see where you might take us with this. So if you only had three brief safety moves that you could share with us to recommend to homeowners or even people who are renting for Fire Safety Week, what would those three safety tips be?
So my first one would be always have a working smoke alarm. it's going to make the difference in you being able to know that there's a fire and have time to get out. The second thing is going to be knowing two ways out of every room. That is, your door would be your first one, and your window would be your second, and always having it so that you can escape through them. And then the third would be to have a home escape plan, and that is, if you have pets, include your pet in that. One of the things we're finding is pets are family. And so you can actually train them what to do when, especially if you have a dog or even if you have a cat and you crate them, have them in the room with you so that in the event that you had a fire overnight, you could escape with them. And then go to your outside meeting place. If your pet doesn't come with you, then you tell a firefighter, and the firefighter will go in and they will try to rescue that animal. We don't want people going back in because, unfortunately, people have gone in and lost their lives looking for their pets. And we know they're so important, but firefighters have gear that can help them do that safely. And they're going to do everything they can to save your pet, too. So that's the biggest thing. And then, those would be the top three things that I think if everybody did that, we would have a safer world, and you would have a little bit of a safety net in the event that something goes bad. But really educating yourself on this, spending the money to have working smoke alarms, and then practicing that plan with those that you love.
Ma'am, those are very good tips indeed. And as the second part of this question, is there a website that people should maybe refer to when it comes to looking for safety tips or rules or recommendations?
Yeah, so if you have kids, you can go to sparky.org. That gives safety information from Sparky the Fire Dog for kids. And then as adults, you can go to NFPA.org. And on that website, there's safety tips for the community, all different ages. Right now, with it being Fire Prevention Week, we have a public-facing site called fpw.org/battery. And it gives you some really easy things to do to use lithium-ion batteries safely. And so that campaign will stay up through the end of the year and is so important for us. But yes, it'll give you tips and tricks. And then if you're on Facebook, you can follow us at Sparky the Fire Dog and get some really cool information.
Yes, ma'am. See, you learn a lot from Fire Prevention Week. A lot of people thought that this was maybe just a day or something that would get highlighted maybe once a year, but there's a whole week dedicated to it. And it's so important. I'm so grateful that you joined us here today to tell us more about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and stay fire safe out there.
Yes, ma'am. Indeed, you heard it here first. Well, thank you all for joining me this morning. I hope you leave here informed today and learn more about Fire Prevention Week. It lasts from October the 5th to October the 11th. So learn more about it and make sure that you're keeping yourself and your family and loved ones safe. Have a great Thursday afternoon, and we'll see you next time.